And welcome back into a brand new episode of Tribal Council Chat. As always, we are your hosts. My name is Bruce Heller,
And my name's Brett Parnell.
and we have a fun episode this week. We haven't done a player profile episode in a while. We've done a few season profiles. Did Cook Islands a few weeks ago. Last off season, we did Australian Outback and Pearl Islands. We've done Gabon. I don't remember the last full player episode we did. It might have been the Amanda episode in the off season where we first started the show.
We didn't. I mean, technically the Mount Rushmore series,
Well, yeah,
and
that's
then we did an Amanda episode early on. We did a Michelle episode early on. So yeah, we're back at it.
our like second or third episode was a double player profile episode when we did Todd and Rudy.
Rich and Rudy.
No, I chose no.
Oh yes, I remember.
It was like our second episode ever, I think, and we were still
Yeah,
like
you're right.
planning out the whole episode in advance instead of just picking a topic and running with it on the air. I found a note in my phone that had like the full rundown of what we were going to do for a full episode. I'm like, I haven't done that in forever.
Yeah, same. I mean, the more comfortable you get on here, why bother?
Yeah, for sure. So, anyways, we're back with a player profile episode that's not part of a series on Jeremy Collins.
Yeah.
This is going to be fun. Jeremy played Survivor 3 times, won one of them.
Though, I mean, you could argue that it almost is, in a way, part of a series because we've recently talked about Parvati, Rob, and Sandra, and Jeremy's joined them in the Traders.
Fair enough. It's not like a Brandon Mount Rushmore type thing,
No,
though.
not at all.
Go check that out if you haven't, by the way. Someone texted us like a month ago and said they finally watched the Mount Rushmore series. So it still holds up all these
Yep.
years later. And by years, I mean a couple months. But
Yeah, like we were doing it right before I went to Europe to see Taylor.
yeah, if that person is listening, shout out to you. We both really appreciated getting that text from you. So, but do you want to take it away from here?
Yeah, so let's get started and then I'll let you go a bit because I know you're the expert in at least two seasons that Jeremy starts with. But San Juan Del Sur is where he gets his start, blood versus water, with his wife Val.
Yeah, for sure. I love their bond. She's in like the first challenge, isn't she?
Yep.
And we see him go to not Redemption Island, Exile Island with John Rocker, who he doesn't like based on like seeing previous information about him. And we'll get into John Rocker, I'm sure.
Yep.
But he makes a deal with John and says, just protect Val and I'll see what I can do, or something along those lines.
Always something that's challenging in Survivor, as we've seen not only with John, but with Gary, with Lisa, is if there happens to be a tribe mate who recognizes you.
Yeah. What are you talking about? Gary on Guatemala wasn't a football player. He was just a humble landscaper.
So
Gary
he said,
Hawkins. I love that he stuck to that though, even though like NFL reporter asking you knows who you are.
yeah.
Stick to the landscaper. Shout out to Gary for commitment there. So, but yeah, unfortunately for John, Val goes home next. He tries to save her but can't. Jeremy, of course, was not there to see that. John's
Yeah.
game blows up via Jeremy and Natalie at a challenge.
But
Uh,
in a way, I just want to mention this because you mentioned that Val goes home next. If I was to ask you, Bruce, who are the two most memorable players from Survivor Blood versus Water? I mean, I kind of forgot I'm asking a Wentworth fan. But
well, she wasn't memorable that season yet.
yeah, so who would they be?
The three that come to my mind are Natalie, Jeremy, Keith. And if I had to only pick two, I
Right.
don't. Natalie wins and is my favorite winner, so I'm gonna pick her. I don't. I probably go Jeremy because he comes back two more times and wins,
So
but it's
that's what I
really
was
hard
getting
to
at.
not pick Keith.
Yeah, you're right. It is very hard to not pick Keith, but that's what I was getting at. Natalie and Jeremy are such big names from this season. And who are the first two players to be voted out of each tribe?
Oh, I never realized that.
Is it almost an advantage in this type of a season to not have your loved one there and to really be playing as a free agent? I
I
think it
mean,
is.
maybe it was in the first Blood versus Water because all the singles started targeting the pairs.
Yeah,
But in this one, John and Jacqueline were one of the last standing pairs and found themselves in like the middle vote swing position for
it's
like
true.
three episodes in a row at one point.
But at the same time, like I'm saying, Nadia and Val go home quick.
Yeah,
And that allows, say, unlike a Wentworth, Natalie and Jeremy can both really play their own game. Could you
yeah,
imagine how different the game would be for, say, somebody like Kelly if Dale went home first?
yeah. I think it depends on who it is. Because
Yeah.
someone like Kelly that went home because of her dad taking people off on his previous tribe, absolutely. It
I
would
mean,
have benefited her if he went home.
if Nadia stayed one more week, she probably would have negatively impacted Natalie's
Yeah, but also, and I just used this example for a pair, but they really are like the prime example of a pair playing together in this game,
Yeah,
especially with this second season. I mean, imagine John or Jacqueline if the other one goes home early.
true.
I don't see that going well.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, together, they were the middle vote for like half of the post merge, it felt
You
like.
brought up other John. Look at what happens when John Raku goes home.
Julie
Julie just
quit.
quits.
Yeah. Poor Julie. Well, she quit. I'm not going to say poor Julie, but watching him just get ripped to shreds at that challenge
Yeah.
where he says to Natalie, if you were a man, I'd knock your teeth out. Insane line, by the way.
Yeah.
That, yeah, he deserves any shade he gets for that line. But
Absolutely. But at the same time, I do, in a way, you don't want to sympathize with John's character as a whole, but I do see his frustration in this point solely because, especially when you watch it back, I could see Jeremy challenging him on his record.
yeah,
I didn't really like it coming from Natalie simply because Natalie doesn't have Google. She doesn't have
yeah.
anything to check what Jeremy's talking about. All she has is her tribe mate's word.
None of
And
the,
that would set a very dangerous precedent if in the future somebody could just theoretically take a regular Survivor player who's done nothing in the public eye at all and say, hey, that guy used to be an actor or used to be in the NFL or whatnot, and he said this about someone's ethnicity or sexual orientation and try to defame them.
yeah, that's fair. In this case, specifically, none of what was said was untrue that way.
Correct.
So I just have a hard time feeling bad for John Rocker here because I feel like he
Yeah,
brought
I
it
do.
on himself.
I do too from his own background. It's
Not
just where
only
it came
said
from.
not only said all the bad, stupid things,
Yeah,
but said them to the press.
exactly.
You brought
I
whatever
just think if you're
on
in
yourself.
Jeremy's position, and I'm trying to kind of keep this focused on Jeremy, but I'm like, if you
Yeah,
want to bring that into the game, bring it up yourself.
that's fair. And I feel I don't know that he would have done it the like kind of aggressive way Natalie did it at the challenge, but I feel like he would have at some point.
Not we could talk about this season in a whole episode, but Natalie's game is so interesting because she ends up winning the game, but in episode one, her and Nadia are still on the Amazing Race.
I have not watched their season, but
Oh
I
my
heard
God.
they were really annoying on that show. So
You
I'm
being a
interested to
huge
see it.
Natalie Anderson fan, as you are in Survivor, you have to watch that season. when I first heard that they were coming on to, and I love Natalie on this season. I love Natalie on Winners at War. When I first heard they were coming on to Survivor from Amazing Race, I was like, oh no, not this again.
Oh gosh, that almost makes me not want to watch their season of Race because I don't want to not like them on it.
Oh, I should have picked that season as the one I got to pick that you and Kevin would watch on Pit Stop Pals.
Fair enough.
I
By the way,
totally let that slip.
you mentioned Natalie. I was briefly reminded of our episode where we did like all the trivia for each a question for each season,
Yeah,
and we were asking each other really hard questions. And then just to troll you for Winners at War, I asked you the name of the second place finisher.
that was funny.
You saying the phrases Natalie and Winners at War together made me think of that. And that's the last time I'll reference her placement on Winners at War this episode, I promise.
We will have to
This is
do
the Natalie episode.
we we will have to do that same another round of that this year in the summer holidays,
Yeah.
right in between Canada Day and Independence Day for as long as I'm able to celebrate Canada Day.
Well, yeah, I don't. That's a whole other podcast, but I wasn't prepared for.
That is John Lovett's podcast.
First famous first boot, John Lovett. That is.
Yep. Anyway, back to San Juan del Sur.
Yeah, the other thing with Jeremy was him and Keith kind of had this alliance, but didn't trust each other at the same time. But they wanted to trust each other because they were both firemen. But Keith isn't good at keeping his mouth shut and said Jeremy's name at some point, I think.
Yes, that's correct.
Their whole dynamic was a mess, but I loved it. I love both of them.
Absolutely. I love that too. I love the point too where it's like Keith and Jeremy are talking to each other, and Keith is just talking about, I never really, before Survivor, interacted with people from up north, and Keith is from Louisiana, and he's just like, I haven't been further north than Arkansas.
That's fantastic. I love Keith. We could do a whole episode of amazing Keith scenes that make us smile.
We Isn't Kevin a big Keith fan?
Yeah, it's his favorite
We
non-winner, I think.
Yeah, we should get Kevin on here in the summer and do that.
Normally, when we bring up that Kevin likes a player, I go out of my way to like troll him and mess with him about the player. Keith is above that, so I'm not going to give Kevin crap this time. Even if he was still alive, I can't pretend not to like Keith. That's just illegal.
Absolutely.
So, shout out to Keith. But no, and Jeremy goes home early in the post merge because he's a threat, but he's so good in the pre merge this season.
That he is. You're right. He does go home early because he's a threat, but he went home at 8th, so he still played 2/3 of the game.
Yeah.
And built that relationship with Natalie that we see sticks out not only over another season, but in the real lives, as Natalie is the godmother of one of Jeremy's children.
Which is why they should not have been put on the same tribe in Winners at War. Production
Exactly.
put a target on both of them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know how production can mess that up. All you have to do is swap Natalie and Sarah, and the tribes are perfect.
Or Tony and Jeremy, even.
Yeah, the only thing with that is then you have Tony, Robin, Parv on one tribe.
That sounds awesome.
It might be.
But they also, I think, because of Game Changers, wanted Tony and Sandra on the same tribe.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So swapping Natalie and Sarah would have been the move. But also the weird, like, awkward Sarah-Rob dynamic where they can't stand each other would have gotten even more screen time than the too much screen time it already got.
It might have never happened if it wasn't for just that.
For him trying to use the buddy system.
Tribe swap that completely failed.
For him thinking the same strategies that worked on the Redemption Island cast would work on a cast of winners,
Yeah.
and I love him. But why would you think that would work? Uh, but yeah, I'll ask you this: Jeremy is largely credited with perfecting and maybe even inventing the meat shield strategy.
Yeah.
Does that is that a Cambodia thing, or do we see any of that starting in San Juan del Sur?
Um, hmm. It probably more or less starts in San Juan del Sur. I think he was perceived to just be that threat. So he
Yeah,
really took what he learned from his first game and said, how am I going to defeat this weakness that I have and turn it into my strength?
keep Joe around as long as I can.
Yeah. And that worked when he was playing against the cast that was voted on by the fans as all massive names.
Yeah, plus Monica Padilla.
Yes.
I don't know why I felt the need to do that. I have nothing against her, but her
I
being
mean,
on that cast is so weird.
I'm going to say that this cast is all these massive names, but I'm going to be honest, I only voted for about 40% of them. So
Yeah.
I can look back at that fan ballot and just be like, this is just sad. I voted for T Bird. I voted for Jim Rice. I voted for Natalie Tenorelli.
Stephanie Valencia, too, wasn't it?
I think so.
All these people that didn't get on 31 have 31 cast photos on Brent Steele, by the way.
Yep.
But yeah, I love Jeremy in San Juan del Sur. Him and Natalie, one of my
I
favorite
mean, I
duos.
voted for Mike Holloway, but that makes sense why he didn't get on.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a second chance when you win.
Surprised Mama C. Carolyn Rivera didn't get on.
Yeah.
But no, kind of wrapping up San Juan del Sur. I love that this is the one of my favorite duos are Jeremy and Natalie. We see she kind of uses his vote out as more fuel to try to get revenge for him, like she
Yeah.
did with her sister. He plays a really strong game. He's good socially, he's good strategically, and ultimately people just realized how good he was, and the numbers were against him.
Exactly.
I think John Mish led the charge on that, if I
Yeah.
remember right. So
And that makes perfect sense in terms of where the development of the meat shield strategy comes from and where it really becomes a Cambodia thing is Jeremy was almost John's meat shield until it was time for him to go.
yeah, for sure. Did John Mish invent the meat shield strategy? Have we been mislabeling it all this time?
No, not at all.
Brett just credited John Mish with
No,
inventing the meat shield strategy.
no, I did not. You're being like my friend who says I said things that I did not say.
Sorry, I'm used to putting words in Kevin's mouth, and it just kind of happened.
What I'm saying is that happened to Jeremy, and then Jeremy was able to come up with a new strategy based on his experience getting voted out by John.
Based on John's strategy that he invented.
Oh, I feel sorry for Kevin now.
You listen to our show. He does it to me more than I do it to him.
That is very true.
At least that's the story I'm going with. Odds are it's probably 50-50. But no, John, I agree. John did not invent it. Jeremy did. But John kind of laid the groundwork for it in a way that I hadn't realized before.
Yeah,
And had Jacqueline gone home early, John might not have even been here for this because I think the two of them really benefited from both being there.
yeah, absolutely.
Kind of like Sierra and, well, no, not Sierra and Laura. Sierra played good with Laura and played good with the other alliance both. So, but I'm trying to think. Yeah, the people that had their loved ones voted off did a lot better in the first Blood
Yeah.
versus Water, but this one was
Well,
more mixed.
well, let's head back to Cambodia now
Yes,
and actually talk about the meat shield strategy. because Jeremy gets voted into play by the fans. He
Yes.
is one that I did vote for.
Good job.
Him, Wigglesworth, Fishback, those are the three I know I voted for that got on.
Nice.
Um, and then Jeremy, once he gets to the beach, he does exactly that. He forms an alliance with Joe, with Keith, with Savage, with Tasha, all big name players in the game,
Yeah.
especially with the exception of Savage, all from his kind of era of Survivor.
Yeah, for sure. Also, side note, Cambodia has awesome buff colors that are really unique that you don't there's a teal and a pink that you don't see almost any other season.
Yes, it does. Also, fun side note, did you know that Cambodia was really season 32?
I might have.
At this point, Michelle has already won the game, but they wanted the fan vote to instantly play on the next season.
Huh.
So
Gosh,
they've
we had to wait
already,
even longer to find out.
Michelle's season, they had to wait like a year for the reunion or something. I saw an interview that she did before Widows at War.
Gosh, that's crazy. That's
So
wild.
Cambodia basically went from voting to airing in 4 months.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
They did leave right from the season 30 finale, though.
They went from the season 30 finale to LAX to Cambodia all that night.
Yeah, that's wild. And then straight to walking through the temples that they walked through it while the music was playing for the intro song.
Yep. I will be at those temples in December.
Nice. So you can like record a video of yourself saying if you ask my friends back home if I'm in a Cambodian temple or on the moon, they'd probably think I'm on the moon before they think I'd be here.
Yep.
I might be messing that up a little bit. I don't remember if it's the moon or Mars or somewhere else or maybe just space.
I
Well,
think it was the moon.
recreate that Keith video.
Yes, that would be funny.
Was that even at the temple?
I believe it was at least nearby.
Okay.
Angkor Wat.
I doubted myself for a second. I thought it might have been at a different reward, but uh, Keith episode coming up at some point. Clearly, we need to do that. But
Yeah. We'll do that in the summer
yeah, so
with Kevin.
yeah, the meat shield strategy is really what sticks out to me from Cambodia. But also, Jeremy was just dominant here. Like after a certain point in the game, I don't think anything was stopping him.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great strategy to get his game going. It was a great, it was a game-changing strategy for how to play Survivor. But you're right. Once he got into the merge and was in power, then the only thing that I guess really could have stopped him was if he wasn't immune in that wild tribal council, because I still don't understand how any of that worked. But
The one where Probe stopped the episode during the finale to map it out for people.
yes,
Yeah, that is true. I never
I
mind.
mean, I get it when he explained it, but if I was asked to explain it to our listeners, I'd be like, watch it for yourself.
Yeah, I just send them the link to the video. But I was about to make a cool point and I forgot what it was. Oh well, it'll come back to me. But no, Jeremy was awesome this season. It really was kind of just like a snowball rolling down a mountain. Once it got going, it just kept getting his game kept getting stronger and strong. Oh, here's what my point was. Jeremy came really close to playing a perfect game.
Yeah,
Unanimous jury vote, but he did have votes cast against him. Not a perfect game, but any votes cast against him were negated by an idol. So
true.
no vote, I believe, no votes against him counted.
Wow, that's impressive.
I'm gonna look that up while we talk, but I really do. I like the analogy I just made too of his game in this season is like a snowball. rolling down the hill. The more he kept going, the stronger his game was
And how it
getting.
starts is almost really interesting too. That Jeremy comes back to Survivor after playing with his wife, and then tells us that Val's expecting the third kid while he's on the island.
Yeah, but doesn't tell his tribe mates right away,
That's right.
which is smart because that could absolutely make you a target. People are usually afraid of the sympathy vote.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that crazy tribal in the finale. Jeremy receives 3 votes,
Yeah.
negated by an idol. Only 3 votes he received all season.
Wow.
So
That is impressive gameplay, that's for sure.
whatever the closest thing you can get to a perfect game without doing it is what Jeremy did. Because only 3 votes is impressive, but none of them actually counted.
Yeah.
Is that something you think we'll ever see again, or do you think we're just gonna have 2 for eternity?
Um, I mean, I think it's certainly an absolute perfect game would be very hard. I think it's certainly possible because I mean, when I look at the new era, even though there's always seems to be somebody gets 1 or 2 votes, I see final threes where people get 0 votes other than the winner.
Yeah.
What happens if, say, I'm trying to think of each season, but like,
But somehow the most dominant win of the new era was also the closest jury vote.
yeah, that was confusing.
Austin getting that many jury votes. I
But
like Austin, but like
I get
how?
the sense that that group was just so tight that it
Yeah,
really makes people vote off of relationships.
fair.
But like, if I'm thinking of something like 46, if Kenzie is in the finals against Ben and Liz, she probably wins every vote.
Yeah.
If I look at like 41, well, 41's hard, but maybe again, maybe we could go a bit far back. If Ricard is in the final of 41, he probably gets every vote.
Yeah. But he had votes against him at some point,
Yeah,
didn't he?
no, I'm. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying a perfect game probably won't happen. I in the new era, I
Yeah.
do see ways that people can win a unanimous game vote.
Honestly, the fact that the perfect game thing has happened even twice is impressive when you think about how hard that is to do.
Yeah, exactly. Even like this past season, if I bring up 47, but it's like if either Rachel or Genevieve is in the final against 2 players that don't involve Sam, they probably get every vote. If it's against Teeny and Sue.
Yeah.
So it could happen, but it's not likely.
I think Sam might also get every vote in that scenario.
Possibly.
But back to Cambodia, Jeremy plays one of the most dominant games this season, I think. It really was once the
Yeah.
train got going, it got barreling down the tracks, and anyone who tried to stop it got sent home. And Sierra tried to tell people, take a risk. You're playing in for Jeremy's game, and people like Savage didn't want to listen, and Jeremy rolls through the season.
It seems to be the standard process for big name players that are in control and no one's listening to players below them when they win.
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Jeremy also fantastic with confessionals, by the way.
Yep,
That
absolutely.
When we talk about great confessionalists, we always mention people like Penner, but Jeremy's great too. I love the his storytelling ability, the way he explains things. It's fantastic. And his accent is cool. But what else do we have from Cambodia? Do we want to move forward to his last season?
Um, I'm just looking at my notes.
I feel like his last season is where he struggles the most, for sure.
Yeah, let's go there. I think that that'll probably give us the most to talk about, seeing how recent it was. Um, you're right that it's where Jeremy struggles the most, but at the same time, he certainly is a big player in this game. Going right to episode one.
Yeah, him and Natalie get the flack and the attention for being so close.
Yeah.
She ends
And
up going home, but it could have just as easily been him.
and Michelle joins that alliance. So even though you're right, it could have easily just been him, but even though it didn't seem to work when Rob just targets the relationship between Jeremy and Natalie, with Michelle being a third, two of the three names in that alliance end up sitting at Final Travel Council.
Yeah, I will say, weird move for Rob of all people to be pointing a light on relationships prior to this game, making you a target. You're married to someone on the other tribe. I feel like you might want to take the attention off of prior
I
relationships.
feel like you're right there, but at the same time, it also is just, if Amber is on the other tribe, so blatantly obvious that Rob is probably coming into the game knowing there is no way that he can just get people to ignore that.
You got Lex to ignore it.
Well, Lex wasn't didn't know what was going to happen decades later.
Fair enough. Huh.
I
So,
mean, if you've ever seen Lex did a podcast on that episode. I'd have to go back and find it, but it was a great listen.
he did Talking with T-Bird back in 2020, and it
That
was
might have been it.
fantastic. I'd love to get him on here.
Yeah.
I I feel like I throw too much shade at him because I genuinely don't feel bad for him about the All Stars thing. But I do like him. He's a fun
Oh yeah.
character. He's a great player.
Absolutely.
Off the show, seems like a super nice guy. So he'd be fun to get on here
Oh,
for
he would
sure.
be.
So, but no, it's it's an Winners at War just feels like an uphill battle for Jeremy the whole time from the Natalie boot forward, and he makes the merge. He goes a little bit into the post merge, but he's the target two or three times. I feel like Jeremy was always just barely avoiding elimination.
Yeah, you're right. He is just avoiding elimination, but then when it happens, it's almost his own fault,
Yeah.
which is a really probably the game changing moment of Winners at War.
Was I'm curious what does he go home if he doesn't use safety without power?
It would go to Rocks, so if they voted for him, he would have been safe.
Okay, because Tyson ends up going home that
Yeah.
tribal.
Because they lose Jeremy's vote, his alliance now doesn't have the votes to go to Rocks.
Yeah.
And that costs all of them a shot to win the game.
Huh. Instead, he let Sarah get in his head and made him go first.
Yeah.
Was Jeremy going home the one where Michelle rips into a certain player that the Survivor community doesn't like now after a tribal?
Where Michelle? Oh, yes, I know which player you mean now. I was trying to think, who do you mean? I don't think what's it called?
It's
Uh,
Nick. I'll just say
yeah,
it.
I
I don't
was
think
like,
anyone in our audience is one of the people that he shall not be named or whatever
Yeah.
Survivor Twitter wants to do. I
Um,
just remember there's a tribal where Michelle says something along the lines to Nick of, I wondered if you were going to have the guts or the balls to come talk to me or something like that.
yeah, I remember that. I think it might be that one.
It would have to be because her and Jeremy and Nick were kind of each other's only alliances at that point.
Yeah.
Again, Nick. Real life aside, because we're not going to get into any of that, but Nick,
No,
what were you thinking with that move? Like,
exactly.
because his explanation didn't make sense to me at the
It
time.
made
I
no
don't remember
sense.
what it was, but I remember it not making sense. But it's Jeremy really kind of Jeremy's first season and his second season, he shows how he plays when he is in the power position and when he is kind of on top. Really with Cambodia for a little while with San Juan Del Sur, but he goes home in eighth place. So not that obviously changes. Winners at War, I feel like kind of shows the range of Jeremy's game that he can play from the bottom and kind of scratch and claw his way round by round also.
Yeah, very true. He did play a very good game though. One individual immunity the time that Wendell went home. Used the safety without power. Um,
Used it poorly, but still used it, I
Still
guess.
used his advantage to keep himself safe,
Yeah.
even though it didn't work out. Um, Jeremy, interestingly enough, in the tribal council that everybody remembers, votes for Denise,
Yeah.
which gets negated when she has two idols.
Yeah. And then sends someone home that wanted to work with her and then struggles to find footing the rest of the game.
That's right.
Gosh, Denise, what are you doing there?
Went for a huge move on day 16.
She went for a nickname. She was the Queen Slayer the rest of that season,
Yeah,
but never had a chance to win.
that's it.
These
And
are
then, even while Jeremy's in the game still, because he does still last a few weeks after the safety without power incident, even though his alliance is down, he still does work on like a few big votes.
yeah,
So notably, Sophie goes home after, and this is extortion, and he's part of that vote. He helps vote out Kim.
yeah,
Another player like him to be kind of seen in that like second tier of all time greats.
yeah. Sophie Blindside underrated, by the way. I feel like that's one of the great blindsides in show history.
It is one of the great blindsides in show history.
I don't feel like it gets held in that level by everyone.
Yeah, I think the reason it probably doesn't is because there's one fundamental mistake in this made by like most of the cast, if not all of the cast, and that's that Tony at that point is winning and winning and winning. If Tony is forced to sit out of the challenge, Tony loses and you can get rid of Tony.
Yeah. Nobody but Kim realized Tony was dominating the season somehow, though.
Michelle did.
Well, that's true. I just remember like Kim saying it before a challenge and then
Yes.
Kim's immunity, that challenge. Here's what she said and sent her home.
And then not only is this the challenge where Tony does not get extorted because he pays the penalty. Well, he does get extorted for the penalty, but that he's able to pay it in fire tokens. It also is the challenge that Tony noticeably wins while cheating.
I'm drawing a blank. He did what? He cheated in a challenge?
There's lots of video evidence of him doing this where Jeff told them they can't do that.
Huh. I either forgot or completely missed that. That's interesting.
I'll send it to you.
Oh.
Jeff made the rules very complex, and Tony played it the way you would in older seasons.
as Tony does.
Yep. Smart.
Yeah, but yeah, I would put Jeremy on kind of that second tier you talked about of not Mount Rushmore, four greatest players ever, four most iconic players ever, but he's on that second or maybe third tier, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I don't know if I'd
Somewhere in
go
the
second
top,
or
like,
third, but
somewhere I would say between like 10 and 15 in the best players of all time.
yeah. So, no. But no, winners at war, my biggest takeaway is it just shows how great of a range his game has. He can play from the top, he can play from ahead with numbers, but if he's on the bottom and needs to scratch and claw week by week, he can do that too and get pretty far.
Yep. Absolutely.
And let me look it up. I forget his placement, but all right. Well, do you have anything other thoughts from Winners at War before I move to Align Blindside First Boot?
Not directly winners at war, but I wanted to bring something up at the end of a player profile episode.
Yeah.
Now that we know, I mean, I guess we have an idea that it probably won't be some of the all-time greats that we're looking at, like a more second chance names coming up in the rumors. But
Jeremy
if
finished eighth in Winners at War, by the way.
makes sense. But if Jeremy was to play on season 50, how do you think he would do?
I think he'd do well. He's never
I do
not.
too. Yeah, I'd say he'd do well. I think he would be the type of pre-40 player who would still be well respected by the new era. I think he could maybe turn some bigger names from the new era into his meat shield strategy, maybe like a D or a Jesse,
Yeah.
and go very far.
I feel like either one of them would also try to use. I feel like that would be like with either one of those two would be like a mutual meat shielding. They'd both think the other person is their meat shield.
Yeah.
Because Jeremy, while invented the strategy of using the meat shield that John laid the groundwork for, he's he's the type of player that someone else could also use as a shield at this point.
Yeah.
I have no reason to think he wouldn't do good in 50 though. His placements are 8th, 1st, and 8th. Those are all really good.
Yeah, very true.
How do you agree though? You think he'd do good on 50
Yeah,
also?
I'd agree. I think he'd do well. It would be hard for a winner to win again, but I think he would go deep into the merge.
I mean, Sandra won on her second time.
That's true. We've seen it once.
Technically, we've seen two people win twice, but
Well, yeah, but not what I'm speaking of non-winners letting a winner win again.
yeah, that's the plot twist. Season 50 is going to be all winners again.
We know how much Jeff Probst loved the first one. Let's do it again.
This is the second week in a row I have flat out said what 50 was going to be. This week it's Winners at War 2. Last week I just said we're running it back with the exact cast of One World. So we'll see what happens next week if my theories keep getting more ridiculous.
All right, ready for the line blindside first boot?
Yeah.
So I am going to give you three names that had an impact on Jeremy's game in one way or another.
Nice.
So from San Juan Del Sur, John Mish.
Ooh.
From Cambodia, Joe Anglim.
Oh boy.
And from Winners at War, thank you. How did I forget the title of Winners at War? Guys, I worked to like 9.5 hours today.
That's okay.
Uh,
It's only a season where your favorite player ever made it all the way to third place. So it's not
you
like
said
it's a
you
highlight season for you or anything.
fair. Um, so from winners at war, Tony Vlachos.
Oh gosh. Tony's gone first for obvious reasons. He's Tony. Joe's gonna be blindsided because he keeps my tribe away from tribal pre-merge, but I don't want him to win three straight immunities post-merge, which leads me to align with John, but I don't have a ton of confidence in that.
Okay, fair. I'm also going to align with John. And it was surprised you said you didn't have a lot of confidence in that. I'd be fine with that. I'm going to switch it up here,
I
though.
just don't trust him to not turn on me if he finds a way,
Fair.
finds a better path.
We've seen. So I'm going to switch it up here, though. We've seen Tony come in Cagayan and be amazing. We saw Tony come in Game Changers and be crazy and get voted out second.
Blaze of glory.
We saw Tony come in at Winners at War and beat Tony in Cagayan. So I'm due for a season where Tony doesn't play a great game.
Yeah, that's
Which
called the Traders. It just happened. It's supposed to be good next time.
oh, I wasn't counting that show.
Fair enough.
But that means that I am gonna first boot Joe, who might be this physical threat that would target everybody who doesn't live up to his skills and therefore blindside Tony. We've never, like I said about Sandra, we've never seen what would happen if Tony Vlachos is sitting on a jury.
True. Same thing is true of Sandra.
Yep,
But
that's what I just said.
yeah, sorry, I thought you meant Sandra had said that.
No.
But and also, if you have Tony around for a little bit, your tribe is guaranteed to have a very structurally sound bamboo ladder laying around somewhere.
A
As we
fairly
saw from
structurally sound. Maybe one where we don't have to go to tribal council because Tony is medically evacuated.
well, yeah. For those of you that haven't seen Windows at War, forgot the reference. Tony used bamboo and rope to try to build a ladder to climb up to the top of the trees. And like the rungs were very loose, and I think one of them came out as he was climbing.
Yeah.
While he's on a tribe with Wendell, who makes furniture for a living. Just want to point that fact out. Pre-merge winners at War, Tony was just vibing. We got the ladder. We got him running around the beach carrying a shark in his hand at arm's length for no inexplicable reason. Like, oh my gosh, there's so many just funny Tony scenes.
Who's your line blindside first boot?
Oh yeah, we should probably do that, huh?
Yep.
I'm going to go with Natalie, Keith, and Nick.
And who?
Nick.
Okay, so this is easy. Aligning with Keith.
Yeah.
One who doesn't want to play with Keith, who would want to play with a winner over Keith. Yeah, no, not a question. Being on an island with Keith would just be endlessly entertaining for 39 straight days.
Can I be on an island with him and Tony together?
Yeah, that would be funny.
I think that's the recipe.
That means that I am going to. I have to pick. I can't first boot the winner here using your strategy because there's two of them. Sorry, I bounced off camera. This chair is rolling around like ridiculously. So that means that I am going to blindside Natalie solely because if I've got to take a winner with me, she'd be a lot more useful in the early physical immunity challenges.
Yeah.
And first boot Nick.
I feel like Nick's better to sit next to against a jury, but your argument for Natalie is a lot stronger than that.
Well, I'm sitting next to Keith, which probably isn't smart, but he hasn't won the game yet.
Yeah, I love Keith, but there's a
I
reason
know.
for that. Stick to the plan was an iconic moment, but not a very smart game move.
Yeah.
I'm torn because Natalie's my favorite winner. Our audience knows that. I
Yes,
love
we do.
Natalie. She's a
I'm surprised she's still your favorite winner, but
well, she just doesn't come up as often.
yeah.
So
I just assumed she was going to be passed as we were podcasting our way through season 45.
I thought she would be, but she hasn't.
Nice.
And I realize she doesn't come up as often, so now my mission may or may not become finding ways to manufacture her coming up naturally in conversation.
I
We
like it.
shall see if I can accomplish that. Maybe I won't even try. But I want to align with Natalie so bad and work with my favorite winner. But I'm going to align with Keith because I think I can beat him just because like he's a really fun character, fun dude. I'm not sure how great of a game player he is. I feel like if
Fair.
I can get to the end, I can explain my game better and win. I'm
Makes
gonna
sense.
blindside Natalie, but because I want to play with her, I'm not gonna. Normally, my blindsides are like merge boot, early post merge. I'm gonna blindside her by putting her into fire at 4 when she's not expecting it, so I can play with her for a long time.
Nice.
And then first boot Nick.
Nice.
I think he plays a good game on David versus Goliath, but he's the easy first boot here.
Absolutely. So that was a great episode. The season 48 starts on the 26th. So that means that we have, after this week, one more off-season episode.
Yeah,
And then 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be doing our fantasy draft.
true. We need to start scheduling that with people.
Yep. And then, boom, we're into 48 on Wednesday, the 26th. It sounds like a while, 19 days from when we're recording this, but that'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, for sure. And with that being said, check out New Generation Challengers. Check out Pit Stop Pals. We're still doing our tournament madness after a bit of a hiatus because somebody had to go and almost like get deathly sick or whatever happened that
Oh,
we
no.
weren't able to record. It wasn't me. I was professional. I was able to record. I kept track of my health, but just kidding. Like, his health couldn't be helped. I just like to mess with him, but all his fault. But Pit Stop
And
Pals is
check out
back with our
Roundtable
tournament
Talk.
madness. Check out the merch store. Check out Roundtable Talk. And with that being said, grab your torches and head back to camp, everyone.
Good night.
Goodbye.